All right, we're ready for our next Photoshop test. And for this test, we will need this old image, which you can download from Google Classroom. We will also need Duck. So let me go open up Duck. So here's Ducky. We'll open him up. And this test covers the photo restoration techniques that we learned when we were restoring our photo, as well as layer masks and everything else that we've learned between now and then. So the first task states, use the healing brush, and this should say spot healing brush. I'm sorry for the typo. We've not learned to use the healing brush. We're using the spot healing brush on an appropriate area of the photo. Then use the clone stamp tool to correct an appropriate area of the photo and be able to explain why one is better than the other. Well, let's start with the spot healing brush. The spot healing brush is designed to clean up little areas like this, basically by looking at the texture all around that area and kind of averaging it together for you. Where the spot healing brush does not work well is, say, up here in the hair, where the texture has sort of a direction to it, and we kind of expect the hair to be going in a certain way. And if we try the spot healing brush there, see, it just looks like we messed his hair up, so we won't use the spot healing brush there. What we will use there is the clone stamp tool. So remember, the clone stamp tool is a two-part tool. I have to hold down the Option key and click the mouse and then start painting. Holding down the Option key and clicking the mouse tells the clone stamp tool I want to start borrowing texture and image from here. And then the second time you click down the mouse, it basically states I want to start painting that borrowed image down at that point. So an example of that is here. Like, say we click right on his eye and we do this. Okay, we're telling it to borrow image from here, paint it down here. Okay, so that is your explanation. Moving on to number 2. Using the levels adjustment dialog box, we're going to set an appropriate black point and white point. Now, we could use a levels adjustment layer. The problem with using a levels adjustment layer is this image just has one layer. Okay, so we're going to go here to Image, Adjustments, Levels, and when we do it this way, the adjustment only affects that one layer. Okay, the second problem with using the adjustment layer would be we would have to flatten the image before we move this over. Okay, so looking at this histogram, there are no good solid blacks and there are no good crisp whites. So there are two ways we can do that. I can grab this little triangle and kind of pull him in a little bit, and the white triangle and kind of pull him in a little bit, and that resets the black point and the white point. Or I can use the eyedropper tool here to, let me pull back just a little bit on this. I can use the eyedropper tool to select the darkest dark there, what should be the darkest dark. That's this eyedropper tool right here. And then I can use the white eyedropper tool to select what should be the whitest white. Okay, and that gave me just a little too much, but that'll work also. Okay, so that's how we use the levels tool to make that happen. The next part, the second part of task number 2, is use the magnetic lasso tool to make a rough outline of the person in the image. So if you have the regular lasso tool up, you're going to want to hold your mouse button down until you see the magnetic lasso tool fly out. And I'm going to start right here, and this should find the edges as you kind of come around things. And it's doing that. It's kind of finding the edge there. Kind of dipped in a little bit there. That's okay. Okay. And it kind of missed a little bit there, and that's fine. And when I get back to where I start, you should get a little 0 pop up, a little O, that indicates you're closing that circle. If you don't, you can just double click the mouse twice and it will do the same thing. Okay, so we've done task number 2. I'm moving on to number 3. We're going to place the selection under the quick mask, and we're going to clean it up using the paint and erase tools. So I'm going to erase this out here. Grab the erase tool. Remember, this only works if these are set to black and white. Okay, if there's a gray scale or a gray here, you just need to click right here and turn it back to its default colors. So I'll go ahead and erase out the mask here. And by doing so, we're adding this to the selection. Okay, and we'll erase a little bit out here as well. And if you erase a little too much, then you reach up and you grab the paintbrush. I need to make my brush a little smaller there. And you bring the paintbrush in like so. There we go. Okay. Fix a little bit there where we missed. Fix a little bit there and come out from under the quick mask. And there we go. Okay, and the final part of this states copy the image, the old image portrait to its own layer. So I'm going to Command J, and there it is. It's on its own layer now. Ta-da. Okay, starting with task number 4, I'm going to create a new blank image that is 19 inches in width by 13 inches high with a 300 pixel resolution, 300 pixel per inch resolution. So that is done by going to File, New, 19 by 13. Make sure these are set to inches when you take your test. 300 pixel per inch resolution, and I'm going to call it Composite Image. And I'm going to click OK. And here's my new blank image. Okay. Make sure the rulers are turned on. Okay, my rulers were on when it came up, but if your rulers are not turned on, Command R turns them on, turns them off. Okay, so now my rulers are on. Good. So back here to this old image, we're going to drag this layer onto the newly created image. That is task number 5. Done. Okay, task number 6. Use the free transform tool to do a constrained resize of the image to approximately 4 by 6 inches, then rotate it slightly, and remember to finalize the tool. Well, since we have these rulers up now, I'm just going to kind of push this up here like so. I'm going to Command T for free transform. We were asked to constrain the image. That means I hold the Shift key down while I'm doing this, okay? If I do not hold the Shift key down, I might get this, I might get this. I have no real way of knowing if I'm distorting this or not, but with the Shift key held down, I cannot distort it. So we'll go ahead and make it to 4 inches wide by about 6 inches tall, and you can approximate that, that's fine. Remember to let go of your mouse before you let go of your Shift key. That way you don't accidentally distort it as you let go of the mouse. To rotate this a little bit, just go ahead and let the mouse float off the corner like so. Give it a little rotation. And then to finalize this, we either push Enter on the keyboard or we click 2 times. It is finalized. There we go. That's number 6. Okay. I can now close this image down. I really don't need it anymore. I'm not going to save it. And number 7 says open the ducky image. Well, I've already done that. And use the magic wand tool to select the white background. Okay. So here's the ducky image. Here's the magic wand tool. Yours might be at the quick selection mode. That's fine. Just hold your mouse button down until you hit the magic wand tool. We're going to click or select the white background. That will select everything that's white, but we don't want that. We want everything that's ducky and not white. So I'm going to inverse that by going select inverse. Now ducky is selected, and I'm going to pull him up onto his own layer by holding down Command and pushing J. So now I have duck on his own layer with no background. Okay, moving on to number 8. We're going to move the newly created duck image over to our composite. We're going to free transform him, and this time we're going to put him in perspective. So we're going to hold the Command key down, and we can put ducky in perspective. So there he is in perspective. And we can give him a little rotation. Okay? And then we want to finalize this. Again, we can finalize this by clicking 2 times or by pushing Enter. Okay, we're going to rename these layers now. We're going to rename duck, duck. And we're going to rename old image, old image. And I'm just clicking 2 times on the original layer name. And I'm going to call it old image. M-A-G-E. Make sure I get that spell right. There we go. Now, for this next part, you're going to want to move the old image layer on top of the duck. So it sits on the top. And just to show you that all this is working like it should, I'm going to move the duck underneath the old image. Okay, on step 9, it asked me to add a layer mask to the old image layer. So I'm going to go ahead and add a layer mask. This is a white layer mask, so we see everything. If it had been black, it would have made everything disappear. We know that we're editing the layer mask because the little brackets are on the layer mask. So here, if I paint any black, like this, okay, it will make him disappear. Now the advantage to doing this in a layer mask instead of just grabbing the eraser is I can come back and change that anytime I want to by painting white back over the black. Also, if I make some gray and I paint down some gray, that becomes semi-transparent. So this layer mask is controlling the transparency of this layer using whatever level of grayscale that we paint with on that. Okay, so that is in fact number 10, ensuring the layer mask is selected for editing. We did. Use a paintbrush with black ink to paint some paintbrush or paint out the part of the guy's jacket. We did. Okay, use some gray around his hair. Well, we didn't do it around his hair, but you get the idea. There we go. Okay, and be able to explain how a layer mask works. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is test number 2 in Photoshop. So good luck with that, and I will see you in class.